building solutions for productive working relationships. He holds a BS from the University of Central Missouri, a JD from St. Louis University, and an LLM in conflict management and organizational leadership from the University of Missouri. His presentation today is called Communicating Fairly and Kindly.
Good morning. It is really a beautiful day today. I am fortunate enough to drive a convertible, and I put the tap down this morning. And I just felt this breeze as I was driving down the road, and the smell of the air is that it usually strikes me as early spring, but of course in October I suppose it would be early fall. But it's a gorgeous day, and I'm honored to be here. My work takes me into some interesting places, and I am honored when I'm invited into people's lives to help them sometimes at some of their most difficult times in their life. I work with people who simply are not getting along in the workplace. My supervisor doesn't treat me with respect. I don't get acknowledgement from my coworkers. Or on the other end of the spectrum, a family member has lost a loved one. They've died, and they're seeking some compensation. I work in a whole lot of different human worlds, and I'm honored to be able to do that because they have invited me into their world. So as I was looking back on 29 years of what to say today, and it was funny because my wife is here, and she said, "So what are you going to say?" And I said, "I don't know." What can you say? So as I've been working on this talk, I use sticky notes. This is what I came up with out of about 35 or 50 sticky notes. And it says two things: the power of reciprocity and the power of proximity. And if I could boil down somehow in the work that I do and bring it here to you, those would be the 2 points that I would offer you in the time that I have available. I've been honored to, for 30 years now, sit at the end of the table and watch people negotiate. I've seen people cry, scream, talk civilly, all to work out something. By the time I get involved, people are really in heated disagreement. Lines are drawn, the sand is divided, and they come to me and say, "Help us." So I try, often successfully. And for those 29 or 30 years, I sat there and I kept thinking to myself, I had this gnawing question: what is it? What is it that happens in a room when people are in conflict and somehow that dynamic changes and they come to a resolution? What is that point? What happens? What is that unspoken, unseen, intangible dynamic that happens? And I wish I could tell you. I don't know what it is, but I've been working on it. It's been puzzling me for years. I've threatened to write that non-existent book. Ask my wife about it. She'll tell you. She's right there. Ask her. Where's the book? I don't know. It's too hard, you know, because we're dealing with human beings. So, let me share a couple of stories. The power of reciprocity. As we go through our lives, as we walk out these doors, or as we were in this room, we influence each other. We don't always know it, but we influence each other. And it's a mutual process. It is the power of reciprocity. I can say things to you right now in a tone of voice and you will react one way. I can say those exact same words differently and I can create a different reaction. Your reaction back to me is a signal. It's communication. You haven't said a word, but I can watch you and I get feedback. And so this power of reciprocity, I think, is so incredible and so underutilized, not in a bad or good way, but because we're just unaware of how powerfully we can impact one another. I started doing a thing a few years ago, and when I walk down a street, this thing is in my pocket, tucked away, gone. Because I want to observe people. I want to be in the world. I want to be of the world. I'm walking down the street, and as I see passersby coming down the other direction, and you've seen this, you've known this to be true in your lives, there's that moment when that other person glances at you right in the eye. Sometimes it's just for a second, sometimes less, but it happens. Boom. That's acknowledgement. They see me and I see them, and I let them know I see them. I'll say, good morning. Hi, how are you? Very quick. And do you know what I get back? And I don't care if this person looks like me, wears their hair the way I do, dresses like me, looks anything like me. Almost every single time, I get a smile and I said a good morning. I get a smile and I say, and they say hi. The power of reciprocity. And I thought, maybe that's just the beginning. Maybe that is just the beginning. In our world these days, there's so much to fight about. Or at least we think there is a lot to fight about, and we do. And so I begin to think maybe what we need to do as human beings is just get back to the basics. Start by saying hi. I say hi to people who, to so many of us, are invisible. The person who checks us out at the grocery store. The person who cleans our urinals at our office. The people who pick up trash. The people who are just walking down the street. Say hi. See what kind of a reaction. Don't tell my wife this, but I drove through McDonald's this morning. Sorry. And she'd offered to cook me breakfast. I was not ready. When I drive through the drive-thru, you know, people are sometimes kind of grumpy, you know. Good morning, how are you? Faces light up. Good morning, how are you? It's that simple. The power of reciprocity. Let me tell you another story about that. Kind of the advanced stage. Several years ago, my wife and I moved into a new neighborhood. We had to move because we had a 2-story house, not too far from here actually, and we had an elderly Labrador retriever. She could not get up and down the stairs, and all of our bedrooms were upstairs. We debated getting one of those elevators, you know, those stairway elevators, and said, oh, come on. You know, so we took turns sleeping on the couch, each one of us. One night it would be her, one night it would be me, so that down in the living room we could sleep with Ella. The other one got the bed. We did that for 3 months, and then we thought, well, this is ridiculous. We're going to move. We're going to get a 1-story house. Well, that's fine. So we looked around and we found a house. Now, our old neighborhood was 1930s vintage homes, detached garage, and the garages were old, and you couldn't fit a car in there realistically. You could fit rakes and lawnmowers, but no cars. I drive a Mini Cooper. I couldn't fit my car into that garage. And so what happens is when everybody left for work or came home from work, or on the weekends when they were running errands, they parked in front of their house rather than their garage. And so all the people had to do was sit out on their front stoop and watch people come and go and say hello. There's that say hi again. And then you get to know your neighbors. And we had a real community. Literally, we knew everyone on our street. If there was anything that happened, we knew somebody would be there for us. Then we moved, and we're out walking our dog. And people were driving by on this little lane that we lived on. And I'm watching them walk by. They don't look. They didn't wave. They didn't do anything. There was no acknowledgement whatsoever. And I said to my wife, I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to live here. I'm not liking this. And then I said, let's try an experiment. She said, what? I said, the next time people go by, just wave. Walk the dog. Doesn't have to be this, just this. What do you think they did back? Waved. They started waving back. And then they started waving back and smiling. And then they started waving back and waving a little bit more like, hey, now I know you. And then occasionally we'd have somebody actually stop, roll down the window and say, my gosh, that's a beautiful dog. Oh, thank you so much. Her name is Journey. And we'd chat with them. Simply by starting with saying hi. The next time you're out in the world, which is going to happen like now, say hi. Especially those who do not look like Lee. To everyone, say hi. Good morning. When you go through the doors, turn around and don't just hold the door for the person behind you, but turn your head and look at them, acknowledge them, and say hi. Okay. Second point. The power of proximity. This is where I could rant and rave about social media, but I'm not. Because through social media, we have the amazing ability for people to be at their homes or wherever is convenient for them and attend here. I taught at Washington University for 1.5 years on Zoom. I teach at the law school. I had students from all over the world, from China to Colombia, South America. And to have a classroom on the screen is just amazing. But it also divides us. You see, when we're on social media, we aren't together. It isn't this conglomeration of community. It's a platform, but it isn't a gathering platform. It isn't proximity. I started a project in a community not too far from here about 2 years ago. It was just before the pandemic really hit, and that's what interrupted our project. This was a community project. It involved everything. It involved some really deep value issues around sexual orientation, around religion, around roles of citizens and parents and their children. I mean, some really deep stuff. And I set up a meeting with 15 representative people to see if I could be of help. They'd asked me to come along. I said, sure. And we gathered in a room, and I had a flip chart. And we got introduced, and we started talking for a few minutes, and I asked some questions. I said, so have you all met each other? Now, I got to tell you, I knew they had not met in person before. You know why? Because I observe people. When people were coming into the room, I noticed, did they hug? Did they shake hands? Did they kind of, oh, hi, how are you? You know, that gives me signals of what the relationships are in the room. And my sense is there wasn't a relationship here. But yet they were all members of the same community. Even more, they had all attended the same city council meetings, just like a room like this. Those who believed one thing sat on that side of the room. Those who believed something else sat on that side of the room. And I said, so you telling me that you've all gone to City Mountain, you've seen each other, like across the aisle, literally? Yes. but you've never had a conversation. You've never said hi. Yeah, that's right. We spent 2 hours that evening just talking. And there were a healthy dose of good apologies, and there should have been, because these folks who had never met in person just creamed each other on social media, just slaughtered each other. And they couldn't do that when they're in the same room because of proximity. When you can bring people together just close enough to be able to have some connection, whether it's through a wave or through a meeting, things can get done. Conversations can happen. And people can have good conversations when they see each other as human beings. In my world, sometimes I mediate law cases. So I'm dealing with lawyers and their clients. And lawyers do not like to get everybody in the room. You know why? Because it's icky. That's a legal term. That means really uncomfortable. When people are in conflict, oh, it's scary. We get emotions. Oh, it's horrible. No, it's human. And so I talked to the lawyers in advance. I said, I do opening sessions. I do a joint session. No, it's just going to be a scream fest. I said, no, it's not. It's not going to be. I will control the agenda. But we are going to get into a room. And I'll tell you why I did that one time. I had an insurance adjuster and a lawyer in one room one day. And I had the plaintiff, the person who filed the lawsuit. She was a young lady, I think in her 20s, maybe 30. To me, that's young. And her lawyer. And apparently her lawyer had said, look, you got to watch out for these insurance people and these defense lawyers, because this is what's going to happen. And I said, well, I'm going to get them all together, and let's come on in and see each other. At least say hi. See who you're negotiating with. Okay, that's fine. Got everybody in there. Nobody sat down. We just had a conversation. We just chatted. After about, I don't know, 5, 10, probably 10 minutes, I separated the parties again. And as I'm walking down the hall, the young lady who brought the lawsuit said, you know, Mr. Reeves, that insurance adjuster, he was really nice. He seems pretty reasonable. Well, he is. I think you guys are going to get along just fine today. I hope we get this resolved. Proximity. Taking the time to move out of your bubble, out of your space, away from your phone, away from your computer, and get close enough, not tucked up uncomfortably close, but close enough to have a conversation. The final thing, and this is a bonus because I know I didn't mention in my table of contents, no extra charge, is listening. Oh, Reeves, can't you come up something more clever than listening? Come on. I'm not kidding. I tell my students at Washington University, I teach classes in negotiation. I said, the most powerful tool that you can use at the negotiation table is the ability to shut up and listen. Not just with your ears, not just with your brain, but with your eyes and with your heart. Now I got to tell you, say that to a room full of law students, and you mention heart. Come on, Professor Reeves, you've lost your mind. But they find out after 13 weeks it actually works because they take out, at my request, the lessons from the classroom and use it in the real world. And by the time that 13th week comes along, Professor Reeves, I had this amazing conversation. Tell me. And I love hearing that. Listening and being present is so powerful. And I'm not talking about just active listening. You've probably heard of that, active listening. Listening with empathy. I live in a world of conflict. And I gotta tell you, empathy is non-existent. You ask somebody to listen with empathy in a conflict, forget about it. It's not happening. So my suggestion to you is to listen with curiosity. Be curious about people. Why are they behaving that way? Why am I behaving this way? How do I feel about this? I wonder how they feel about this. Those are all questions. Questions to be answered. How do we answer them by a conversation? But until you get that mindset into being curious, which says, I'm open to learn something new. Not to fight with you, but to learn. And when you get into that mindset, our conversations go a lot smoother. Professor Reeves is going to give you an assignment. I'm not going to grade it, and you don't have to tell me whether you did it or not. But when you leave here today, please remember the power of reciprocity. Go ahead, give it a try. Don't think about just the influence you have, but also notice the impact. Those are two different things. When you're in a difficult conversation, don't have it by email. Oh, please, please, please step away from the keyboard. Call them up, Zoom them, have a cup of coffee, sit down, be proximate, and have that conversation there. It's scary, but it works. And then shut up and listen and be curious. Thank you all so much this morning. I hope you have a great day. I think I'll have an opportunity to take questions. Beautiful. Later on.
So we'll do the questions afterwards.
Great.
Final music, and then we'll come back and have questions.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Reeves. As I said, we will have question and answer period afterwards here in the auditorium, and you will stick around to answer those questions.